So one of the things that I think is important to understand from each customer is what does success mean to them? Because everyone has a different definition. If one customer's definition of success is, oh, everyone's happy, everyone's using it, but another customer's definition is, oh, we need to see ROI, or we need to see this, or we need to see that. It's important for us to know because it gives us the benchmarks that we need to have on an ongoing basis to show value. And to show that, the investment that they're making into Rad AI is a good one.
The following is a conversation with Anna Bass, Enterprise Customer Success Manager at Rad AI. Anna is a seasoned customer success expert and has extensive experience in managing complex partnerships and relationships in a rapidly evolving technology landscape. Dear listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And please join us in imagining the future. Welcome, Anna, to the Imagining the Future podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. We're really excited to speak with you. Why don't we start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and what your experience is and what you do at Rad AI.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I have a background in healthcare IT, and specifically at Rad AI, I'm an enterprise customer success manager, really focusing on our Rad AI reporting solution as the reporting team lead. On the day-to-day, I manage the relationship with customers who purchase our solutions, mainly reporting, but do support the others as well.
So what does customer success really look like? It sounds like you said a lot of things in there that are probably a lot more complex than you make them sound easy. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does customer success mean exactly?
I think the main definition of customer success is making sure that the customer is successful with the adoption of the products that they purchase. And at Rad AI, that is probably our biggest focus, I would say, where not only do we want to deploy the solutions quickly and successfully, but we want to delight our customers with the solutions that they purchase. So that means that we're helping to drive the adoption of the products, as well as proving the value of the solutions that they purchase.
There is obviously different definitions of customer success as it's applied across different industries. It may vary when you have something like a retail product versus like a manufacturing product, but the Rad AI's product is pretty intricately driven within the clinical context. It's, in fact, at the intersection of clinical care and generative AI. And I'm sure there are respective complexities with that. So what does customer success specifically look like? And what are some of those complexities in such a specific field like this?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest complexity we see are workflows. We want to make sure that the solutions that customers purchase fit into their workflows in a seamless manner so that we don't disrupt them, especially if there's downstream systems that have healthcare compliance guidelines tied to it. We want to make sure we don't break any of those or impact any of those.
It's really interesting, especially because I think, healthcare, it feels much more higher stakes almost than like a retail product or, like a consumer product that's maybe a nice to have. Whenever products like impressions are reporting, they really drive clinical outcomes to a large degree. And so the responsibility feels like that much higher. You had mentioned, one of your key functions is to improve adoption across the product lines. That's interesting because customer success usually, whenever it sounds at the top layer, kind of like making sure the customer succeeds, which is, it's almost like making sure the customer is happy. But adoption almost implies really ensuring that the customer is happy enough to be able to use the product. I feel like there's a specificity there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is important to understand from each customer is what does success mean to them? Because everyone has a different definition. And if one customer's definition of success is, oh, everyone's happy, everyone's using it, but another customer's definition is, oh, we need to see ROI, or we need to see this, or we need to see that. It's important for us to know because it gives us the benchmarks that we need to have on an ongoing basis to show value. and to show that, the investment that they're making into Rad AI is a good one.
That's really interesting. And I think the primary stakeholder here that we're talking about are really radiologists, right? I mean, the company uh, built by radiologists for radiologists. I think that's the motto, and it speaks really well that there's entire dedicated customer functions towards making sure that they are satisfied. I guess radiologists are incredibly busy these days. The workflow has never been higher. The volumes are high, and there's so many administrative issues that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. How do you specifically build trust and engagement with the specific cohort? And I'm sure there's some intricacies there. Maybe would love to hear a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a great question because I truly believe that trust and engagement go hand in hand. You can't have the engagement if they don't have trust in you and your products. Um, so it's not only trusting me and what I say and what I tell them on an ongoing basis. It's trusting that the products do what I tell them they're going to do. So once you have that trust built, the engagement then follows because they know they can trust me. They know they can trust our products. So it's okay. Well, how can we further engage to show you more things of what you're looking for?
I think that makes sense because I think that there's so much at the intersection of, I guess, trust, engagement, and then those kind of coming together to mean success. And like you said earlier, I think success means something different for everyone. Um, with that in mind, is that something that you define pretty early on with a customer or stakeholder, thinking about like having that initial conversation of, hey, what would success in this project look like? Oh, I mean, is that a process that you guys engage in pretty frequently?
I would say yes, because if we don't know what their drivers are for success, we can't do our job to the best of our ability because we may have our own definition of what they think success means. But if we don't have their definition, then we won't be showing the outcomes that they're looking for. We won't be checking in on a regular basis on what they're looking to see. So it's kind of flying blind if we don't have that definition up front. We're just making assumptions based on what we see in the market or what other customers or partners want, but it's not necessarily tailored to what they expect to see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess zooming out a little bit, can you maybe walk us through a typical customer journey, from when you start with them and onboard with them all the way to realizing that value for them? Can you maybe walk us through what that experience and that path looks like?
Yeah, so for the customer journey, one of the things that we try to learn in the kickoff call is what those success metrics are so we have something to track on. But I feel we also try and stress that we're trying to not make this a big lift for them. We're trying to take on a lot of the responsibility. We know that they have a lot of other IT projects happening in the background. So we really try and take on the bulk of the work to free up time for them to do other things. To that point, we try to get as much set up as possible before the radiologists even go live and start using our products. So from the get-go, they see the immediate, improvements and efficiency gains from a product like Red AI Impressions. Of course, it does vary depending on how quickly the users do see value. Some see it immediately. They take on to AI very quickly. Some others, maybe a little bit more AI averse. So it takes, some hand-holding, some one-on-one time, some education, some patience to get them to that point. And then at
Yeah.
some point post-adoption, it's really, showing that ROI, showing that, impression time savings is improving, or showing that even the number of reports that they can read is increasing. Even overall user satisfaction, having some radiologists be able to really, sit back and enjoy a sip of hot coffee as they're waiting for the impression to generate. It's all of those things that really go into the customer journey of from the beginning through showing success.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I love the piece that you talk a little bit about how there is obviously different fluencies of customers. And I think the big piece that customer success really has to own in on is understanding each individual customer and meeting them where they are to be able to pull everyone kind of over the finish line. And I think that's a really unique concept in the generative AI space because it's so new and so many people just don't know about it. But once you kind of start delving into it, especially something like impressions, which has been around for so long, you realize the ROI kind of proves itself very rapidly. And so I think there is something to be said there, right? I think you just have to get people over the finish line, and you can see, I mean, the testimonials speak for themselves on how the time saved or the efficiencies gained. What do you feel like are things that you've kind of implemented on your team or, at Rad AI, or you've seen work really well in the organization that you are particularly proud of, or, that really make the customer success piece so successful?
I think something that we have done is really just making our impressions roll out so seamless. I feel like we've really gotten the deployment into a space where we're communicating, the deliverables in a really clear, concise way. Customers know from the beginning, what is needed, how long will things be done. We've really sped up how long our model training timelines take. So that's another really big satisfier that shows immediate improvements for our customers as well.
How do you collaborate with product and engineering teams to think about success and really improving the product? Because I know you're talking a little bit about how, you there's a really strong onboarding capacity almost already built out. So it's very seamless for the customer. But at the end of the day, that probably took a lot of collaboration across different teams to get it to such a fluid state. How do you collaborate with these teams to make something like that happen?
You have to not only be, your customer advocate when you're speaking to product and engineering, but then you also have to be representing product and engineering and other teams to the customer that's, having questions or requesting, certain features or things like that. So the first is if it's a customer and they have a question about how something works, or they're requesting for something maybe that we haven't done yet, is understanding the why and the what. Because I'm going to have to be able to clearly communicate that to my teams to help them understand what are they looking for, why is this important, and when are they looking for for this feature, for this to be done. I need to be able to clearly understand what's happening and be able to communicate it to whoever I'm communicating with.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, there's so much alignment that takes place behind what seems like a pretty easy thing to start with. There's a lot of work that goes on in the background. So it's a lot of collaboration internally. It's a lot of collaboration required by our stakeholder partners and their IT departments and their implementation teams. And ultimately, I think there has to be a really strong vision from the get-go. So I really appreciate that. I guess if you could give one piece of advice to a radiology department considering AI or Rad AI's product specifically, what would it be? I mean, given that you've worked with so many different customers from all different enterprise sizes, would love to hear your perspective on what would that piece of advice be?
I think the first piece of advice would be being able to clearly communicate what your success metrics are, because that's going to help ensure that we can drive a successful adoption of the products. But then also, kind of right up there with that, is being able to support and drive change management policies. Because introducing AI, there's always going to be complexities to, how they do things on a regular basis. AI is new. Sometimes it can be scary. So being able to help, reinforce that, it's not that scary. It may take time to learn, but at the end of the day, we're implementing this to really make you more efficient, help you feel less burnt out, really make you faster. I think is really important, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and driving towards the same solution.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, as we talked about a little bit earlier, I think it's about the ROI is there at this point. It's very evident. It's about the change management is really important to drive home that message. And I think hopefully the more we can effectuate that change, in your words, the more sips of coffee we can get radiologists to have, right, while they're waiting for some of these really cool tools to help with their workflows. And it was such a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for your time. I am truly impressed by your perspectives on customer success. It's a brand new field, and I think to be able to own such a strong organizational aspect and perspective towards customer success is not easy. So I really appreciate your insights, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.